you know? It's really that. It was that emotion for me.
So it
Eddie
is
Van
that.
Halen reinvented rock guitar with tapping, harmonics, and the brown sound. Behind his smile hid rivalries with 6 idols. Admiration turned to heartbreak. Born 1955 in Amsterdam, moved to Pasadena 1962. Swapped drums for guitar with brother Alex. Formed Van Halen 1972. Debut 1978, sold 10M. Fought addiction, cancer, died 2020 at 65. This is his secret hate list. Raw emotion from Clapton to Rhodes. Now, let's unravel the 6 guitarists who left an indelible mark on Eddie's soul. Starting from the bottom. Number 6. Eric Clapton. Imagine a teenage Eddie. Huddled in his Pasadena bedroom, cheap guitar in hand, worn Cream records spinning on the turntable. Night after night, he'd drop the needle on Crossroads, his fingers aching as he chased every bend, every fiery lick from Eric Clapton's Les Paul. Clapton wasn't just an influence. He was the divine spark that ignited Eddie's passion. In a heartfelt interview with Guitar World, Eddie confessed, "Clapton was my main influence. I used to sit there for hours trying to figure out what he was doing. I'd play that solo on Crossroads, note for note. He was God to me." The emotion here is pure, unfiltered adoration. Eddie didn't care about fame or flash. He craved the soul in Clapton's playing, the phrasing that breathed life, the sustain that lingered like a lover's whisper, the pauses that built unbearable tension. This was the foundation of Eddie's musical DNA. Drawn from Clapton's blues roots in the Yardbirds, Cream, and Blind Faith. Born in 1945 in Ripley, England, Clapton overcame a troubled childhood, raised by grandparents after his mother abandoned him, to become Slow Hand, the blues rock pioneer. His 1966 work with John Mayall's Blues Breakers earned him Clapton is God graffiti across London. Cream's psychedelic blues, like Sunshine of Your Love, sold millions. But the band imploded in 1968 amid egos and drugs. Eddie absorbed it all, blending it with his own innovations. But time, that cruel thief, changes everything. By the late 1970s, Eddie had eclipsed his idol. Eruption, that 142 instrumental apocalypse on Van Halen's debut, introduced two-handed tapping, harmonic squeals, and dive bombs that sounded extraterrestrial. It wasn't just technique, it was emotion unleashed, joy, fury, liberation. Fans worshipped him, but the old guard? They eyed him with skepticism. In 1980, Clapton's words stabbed like a dull knife. Asked about Van Halen, he said, "He's very good technically, but I don't hear much soul." Casual, maybe. But to Eddie, it was devastating. "It kind of broke my heart," he admitted years later. "I learned everything from him. I wasn't trying to outplay him. I was inspired by him. To hear that he didn't like what I was doing really got to me." Feel the raw hurt. The boy who deified Clapton, now dismissed as mechanical. It wasn't just criticism, it was rejection from a father figure. Their philosophies clashed like thunder. Clapton's restraint, rooted in blues giants like B.B. King and Robert Johnson, emphasized tone and feeling over flash. Songs like Layla, 1970, poured out his unrequited love for Pattie Boyd, raw emotion in every note. Eddie? He was freedom incarnate. Distortion, feedback, experimentation. Jump, 1984, with its synth hook, showed his evolution. But early on, it represented a generational shift. 60s blues versus 80s arena rock. They met in mid-1980s Los Angeles. Eddie, hopeful like a fanboy, approached. Clapton was polite but distant, chatting gear without heart. "He's just a man," Eddie told a friend. "I think I loved the myth more than the person." Disillusionment hit hard. teaching Eddie that idols are flawed humans. Clapton battled heroin addiction in the 70s, sobering up by 1987, but his ego lingered. In a 2021 reflection, Clapton admitted feeling insulted by players like Eddie and Brian May, who he thought couldn't match his blues purity. Yet, Eddie's admiration endured, maturing into respect. In 1995, he praised, "Clapton's tone on Crossroads is still untouchable. That's pure feeling." After Eddie's death, Clapton reportedly called him a true innovator privately. Eddie had made peace. If Clapton hadn't existed, neither would I. But the scar remained, a reminder that heroes can wound. Number 5. Ritchie Blackmore. Few moments crush a young artist like meeting a hero who turns cold. For Eddie, Ritchie Blackmore was a tone prophet, the unpredictable genius behind Deep Purple's Smoke on the Water and Rainbow's epic riffs. As a teen, Eddie bled his fingers studying Burn and Highway Star, admiring the precision, distortion bite, and dramatic flair that made the guitar sing. Born in 1945 in Weston-super-Mare, England, Blackmore honed his skills in session work before co-founding Deep Purple in 1968. Their hard rock fusion with classical elements, like the Bach-inspired riff in Smoke on the Water, 1972, sold over 100 million records. Blackmore's moodiness was legendary, smashing guitars, clashing with bandmates like Ian Gillan. When Van Halen's 1978 debut detonated, Eddie stood as an equal. But their first encounter? Devastating. In a 1982 Guitar Player interview, Eddie recalled, "He just stared at me. Wouldn't say hi, nothing. I was crushed. I thought, wow, I looked up to this guy my whole life, and he just blew me off." The emotion? Utter heartbreak. The silence louder than any insult. Eddie, open and gregarious, craved connection. Blackmore's chill felt like dismissal. Eddie later said, "People like Joe Perry and Ritchie Blackmore just gave me the shaft with their eyes. Wouldn't be nice." It stung because Eddie had just unleashed Eruption, forcing rock to evolve. Yet his idols treated him like a threat. Blackmore's personality fueled it. He was difficult, thriving on distance. Asked about Van Halen, he jabbed, "He's a fine player, but I think he plays too many notes." This revealed a divide. Blackmore's classical restraint versus Eddie's explosive freedom. Deep Purple's Highway Star solo is deliberate. Eddie's atomic punk is chaotic joy. It was generational. British purism versus California innovation. Eddie didn't bitter. In 1995, he reflected, "I was probably too sensitive. Maybe he was shy. But I worshiped that guy." Blackmore softened too. In 2008, Eddie brought something new. His tapping was clever. He found his own voice. By 2020, Blackmore called Eddie brilliant. Number 4. Joe Perry in 1978. Van Halen was a thunderstorm. Raw, electrifying. Eddie, 23, poured his soul on stage. But off stage, the cold indifference from idols like Aerosmith's Joe Perry stung. In 1982 Guitar Player, Eddie said, "People like Joe Perry would just give me the shaft with their eyes. Wouldn't say hello." Imagine the pain. The prodigy ignored by his poster heroes. Born in 1950 in Lawrence, Massachusetts, Perry formed Aerosmith in 1970, blending blues with hard rock. Hits like Dream On, 1973, and Sweet Emotion, 1975, defined 70s grit. Perry's tone thick and sleazy. Eddie sensed threat. They wouldn't help, 'cause they felt threatened. Philosophies clashed. Perry's swagger versus Eddie's invention. Back in the Saddle riffs are groove-heavy. Eddie's Jamie's Cryin' is sonic fireworks. Eddie resolved to build his own door. Perry later reversed. In 2013, Eddie's playing was phenomenal. He reinvented guitar. He admitted being blown away by the debut, saying Van Halen made him take a break from Aerosmith in 1979 amid drugs and tensions. Number 3. Tom Scholz was a seemingly perfect sunny afternoon gig in the late 1970s, likely around 1978 or 1979, where Van Halen was opening for Boston on a shared bill, both bands riding high on the wave of American arena rock dominance. The air buzzed with energy, cold beers flowing, amps humming with anticipation. Eddie Van Halen had just delivered one of his signature solos, raw, innovative, dripping with the adrenaline that made Eruption a game-changer. The audience was still roaring, hearts pounding from the two-handed tapping and whammy dives that no one had heard before. Then, Tom Scholz took the stage and mirrored Eddie's solo note for note. Eddie, still catching his breath side stage, later recalled the moment with unfiltered emotion. Tom Scholz from Boston, too. We played right before them, I forget where, and I do my solo. And then all of a sudden, he does my solo. It was real weird, because it was a daytime thing. I was standing on stage, and the whole crowd was looking at me like, "What's this guy doing?" I was drunk. I got pissed. The fury was immediate, a mix of betrayal and disbelief. To Eddie, this wasn't harmless flattery. It felt like outright theft, not just of techniques, but of his personal identity as an innovator. Born on March 10, 1947, in Toledo, Ohio, Tom Scholz was the polar opposite of Eddie's rock and roll wild child persona. A brilliant mind with a master's degree in mechanical engineering from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Scholz worked as a senior product designer at Polaroid Corporation in the early 1970s, tinkering with audio equipment in his spare time. He founded Boston in 1970, but their self-titled debut album in 1976 was essentially a solo project. Scholz played nearly every instrument, multi-tracking guitars, bass, and keyboards in his basement studio in Watertown, Massachusetts. Hits like More Than a Feeling and Peace of Mind propelled the album to over 17 million sales, making it one of the best-selling debuts ever. Scholz's perfectionism delayed follow-ups. Don't Look Back arrived in 1978 after 2 years of obsessive recording. His engineering prowess extended to inventing the Rockman headphone amp in 1982, a portable device that delivered arena-sized tone in a compact box, influencing 80s guitar sounds for bands like Def Leppard and ZZ Top. Scholz even patented several audio technologies, blending science with rock to create polished, layered productions that contrasted Eddie's raw, live-wire energy. But backstage, sie kunde Earworn, on Nightworries. Scholz's introversion clashed with Eddie's outgoing vibe. Eddie described him as reclusive and standoffish. He never comes around, he doesn't say hi, doesn't do anything, just kind of hides out, runs on stage and plays, and disappears afterwards. This aloofness amplified Eddie's irritation. The imitation felt impersonal, almost arrogant. In a 1980 Guitar Player interview, Eddie vented broader frustrations about the era's copycats. There were guys out there already trying to play what I was doing, the tapping, the runs, all that stuff. Even people who'd been around longer. It's flattering, but it's like, hey man, come up with your own thing. Number 2. Rick Derringer Picture, The Electric Chaos of 1978. Van Halen's debut album is dominating charts. Crowds are frenzied, and Eddie's groundbreaking techniques are reshaping rock nightly. Then, on tour, Rick Derringer, opening act and a respected veteran, steps on stage and replicates Eddie's solo note for note, melody for melody. Eddie, watching from the wings, felt a surge of betrayal. He confronted Derringer post-show in a bar, his words laced with raw honesty. "Hey, Rick, I grew up on your ass. How can you do this? I don't care if you use the technique. Don't play my melody." The next night, Derringer doubled down, echoing the solo again, and even closing with You Really Got Me, Van Halen's explosive Kinks cover that had become their live anthem. Eddie's patience shattered. If you're going to keep doing that, you ain't opening for us. Just like that, Derringer was booted from the tour, a bold move from the 23-year-old phenom standing up for his craft. Born Richard Dean Zeringer on August 5, 1947, in Fort Recovery, Ohio, Derringer rose to fame as a teen prodigy. At age 17, he fronted the McCoys, scoring a #1 hit with Hang On Sloopy in 1965, a garage rock staple that outsold the Beatles that week. He later joined Johnny Winter's band in 1969, contributing to albums like Johnny Winter and 1970, before forming Derringer in 1973. His solo hit, Rock and Roll, Hoochie Coo, became a radio favorite, blending bluesy riffs with hard rock edge. Derringer's versatility shone in collaborations, producing the Edgar Winter Group's Frankenstein, playing on Steely Dan's Katy Lied, 1975, and later Weird Al Yankovic's early parodies in the 80s. By 1978, he was a seasoned pro with real history, someone Eddie had admired growing up, copying Derringer's chops in his early days. To Eddie, this wasn't ego. It was about preserving the soul of his music. His father, John, had taught him, if you play someone else's song, make it your own. Eddie lived that ethos, transforming influences into something revolutionary. Eruption had sparked a frenzy. Guitarists slowed records to study his taps. But Derringer, a peer, crossing that line felt personal. It's fucked, you know, Eddie later admitted, because I'd copied some of his chops way back then. #1. Randy Rhoads. In the early 1980s, rock's guitar landscape was a battlefield, with two young prodigies, Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads, at its epicenter. Constant comparisons fueled a simmering rivalry, one Eddie reflected on with a mix of pride and defensiveness. In archival audio from Randy Rhoads, Reflections of a Guitar Icon, Tooth Eye 22, Eddie said, he was one guitarist who was honest anyway. Because he said everything he did, he learned from me. He was good. But I don't really think he did anything that I haven't done. And there ain't nothing wrong with it. I've copied other people, you know. Born Randall William Rhoads on December 6, 1956. In Santa Monica, California, Randy was a classically trained virtuoso from age 7, studying at his mother's Musonia School of Music. He began teaching guitar at 14, formed Quiet Riot in 1973 at 17, releasing 2 albums in Japan with neo-classical flair. In 1979, at 22, he auditioned for Ozzy Osbourne post-Black Sabbath, nailing it by tuning up and riffing casually. Their collaboration birthed Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, with tracks like Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley, blending metal aggression with Bach-inspired melodies. Randy's style, precise tapping, dive bombs, and classical phrasing, earned him Guitar Player's Best New Talent in 1981. The rivalry wasn't one-sided. Ozzy later revealed, I heard recently that Eddie said he taught Randy all his licks. He never. To be honest, Randy didn't have a nice thing to say about Eddie. Maybe they had a falling out or whatever, but they were rivals. Randy addressed it in a 1982 interview. Eddie is a great player, but it kills me that I do that. I have my own personality on the guitar, but as of yet, I don't think I have my own style. He aspired to evolve beyond influences, but lamented lacking time. Anecdotes amplified the tension. Randy's guitar tech reportedly taped Eddie's photo to the bottom of his wah-wah pedal, so Randy stomped on him symbolically every show, a half-joke reflecting the pressure of comparisons. Beneath Eddie's barbs lay vulnerability. He'd revolutionized guitar with techniques now ubiquitous. Hearing them spoken back by peers stirred complex feelings. The era's competitiveness fueled it. Fans debated endlessly in magazines. Randy's classical discipline contrasted Eddie's instinctive funk blues fusion. Tragically, Randy's story ended on March 19, 1982. At age 25, in a plane crash during a tour stunt in Leesburg, Florida, pilot Andrew Aycock crashed into Ozzy's bus, killing Randy, the tour hairdresser, and Aycock. It froze the rivalry in amber, preventing resolution. Eddie's rivalries were symphonies of emotion, admiration, pain, growth. They shaped a legend who changed music forever. If this deep dive into rock's hidden tensions moved you, smash that like button, share with fellow fans, and subscribe for more untold stories of guitar gods, exclusive interviews, and emotional journeys through music history. Don't miss out. Hit subscribe now and turn on notifications to rock with us every week.